When Megan told me she wanted to take a short vacation with her friend Lauren, I nodded without hesitation. It was late one Tuesday evening. I'd just gotten home from work, loosened my tie, and was microwaving leftover pasta when she leaned against the counter and mentioned it like it was nothing. "Just a few days away," she said, tapping her phone screen, pretending to scroll through hotel options. She didn't look up at me. That part stuck with me. Megan usually made eye contact when she wanted something. If she wanted to order takeout, if she wanted me to fix the leaky faucet, if she wanted to vent about her day, her eyes locked on mine like the request wasn't complete until I acknowledged it. But this time, her gaze stayed glued to the glowing rectangle in her hand. I told myself not to read too much into it. We'd been married 6 years. Comfortable years, I thought. Not perfect, but comfortable. Trust, I believed, was the oxygen of our marriage. And I wanted to be the opposite of my father, the man who lived on lies, who treated loyalty like a costume he could put on when people were watching. My mom wasted 20 years forgiving him. I wasn't going to live like that, and I wasn't going to make Megan feel like she was married to someone suspicious or controlling. So I said, "Sounds like a good idea. You deserve it." And I meant it. Or at least I tried to. But as the week went on, I noticed little things. Megan didn't pack until the last minute, which wasn't like her. Usually she was obsessive about planning, lists and piles days ahead of time. She also started staying later at work, claiming she needed to wrap things up before leaving. A part of me wanted to believe it was just stress, but another part of me, the part that had grown up sniffing perfume on my dad's shirts, didn't buy it so easily. When she finally left, the house felt like a vacuum. I thought I'd enjoy it. I imagined myself sprawled on the couch, catching up on shows she hated, eating Chinese takeout straight from the carton. Instead, silence pressed against me like a weight. Her absence felt heavy, not freeing. The days dragged. I checked her Instagram too often, though she barely posted. A picture of a cocktail with a lime wedge. A blurred beach sunset. Lauren tagged in both, which should have reassured me, but the captions felt hollow, like filler content. I couldn't explain why, but I felt like I was staring at alibis instead of memories. By day 5, I was restless. I stayed up late, pacing the living room, TV playing muted in the background. Something gnawed at me, the same gnawing I used to feel as a kid when my dad promised he was at a business dinner, while I knew he was out with someone else. I hated that feeling then, and I hated it now, the feeling of knowing something you couldn't prove. So when Megan texted me that she'd be flying home Sunday evening, I typed back, "I can't pick you up, I've got a late meeting. I'll see you at home." She answered with a simple heart emoji. That was it. I stared at that emoji for a long time. Cold. Empty. Too neat. That was when the idea came to me, I'd go to the airport anyway. Surprise her. Proved myself wrong. I even smiled imagining her face when she saw me standing there with flowers. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was just lonely. Maybe this would be the thing that silenced the doubts. I didn't know I was setting myself up to be gutted. Sunday evening, I got into my car with a nervous energy I couldn't shake. The sun was setting, washing the sky with orange and violet streaks. My stomach churned the whole drive. I wasn't sure if it was excitement or dread. On the way, I stopped at a gas station. The flower rack sat by the door, wilting carnations wrapped in plastic sleeves. I picked a bouquet of red and white, the kind of thing a husband buys when he doesn't know what to buy. I wanted the gesture to look spontaneous, not staged. I figured that detail mattered. At the airport, I parked in the garage and walked into the arrivals terminal. I tried to calm myself, tried to pretend this was just a sweet idea, nothing more. But my hands were sweating around the cheap bouquet, and I couldn't shake the image of her stepping off the plane with eyes that didn't belong to me anymore. I found a spot near the gate, leaned against a column, and watched the passengers trickle out. Families, business travelers, couples. People hugging, people rushing past. Every time the doors opened, my chest tightened. Then I saw her. Megan. My wife. My Megan. She looked relaxed, tan, like the sun had touched her in ways I hadn't. She wore a simple dress that clung to her hair pulled back casually. She looked beautiful. Familiar. And yet, in that moment, she was a stranger. Because walking beside her was a man. Not Lauren. Not anyone I recognized. He was taller than me, broad-shouldered, carrying her suitcase like it was natural. Too natural. They moved together with an ease that stabbed me. His hand brushed hers. She let it linger. It wasn't accidental. It was practiced. I froze. I felt the blood leave my face. My hands tightened on the flowers until the cellophane crinkled. I told myself maybe Lauren was behind them. Maybe this was just another passenger. Maybe I was overreacting. But then, at baggage claim, the man leaned down and kissed her. Not a peck, not some ambiguous gesture. A kiss with history behind it. A kiss with familiarity. My chest went hollow. People swirled around me, laughing, reuniting, dragging luggage, but it all blurred. My ears rang. My vision tunneled. It was like watching my life split in two right there in the middle of a crowded airport. I didn't walk over. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the flowers at them like in some movie scene. I just stood still, invisible in the chaos, watching her live another life in plain sight. And then, quietly, I left. I walked back to my car, bouquet still in my hand. I sat in the driver's seat staring at nothing, gripping those wilted flowers until the stems snapped in my palm. I had gone there to surprise her. Instead, I surprised myself. I don't remember starting the car. One moment I was staring at the bouquet crumpled in my hand, the next I was halfway down the interstate, headlights smearing across my windshield. The city blurred past me, neon signs, gas stations, silhouettes of people living lives that weren't mine. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached. Every time I blinked, I saw Megan's face tilted toward him, her mouth pressed to his. I should have felt rage, but what hit me first was humiliation. The airport was full of strangers, but what if someone I knew had been there? What if a coworker or a neighbor had walked past while my wife kissed another man in public, like I didn't exist? That was the cruelty of it. It wasn't just betrayal, it was performance. They weren't hiding. They weren't whispering in shadows. They walked through a terminal like they belonged together, like their story mattered more than mine. I pulled into a rest stop and sat there in the dark, engine running. My phone buzzed with a text, landed safe. Be home soon. Love you? I laughed. It wasn't real laughter, more like a bark from an animal caught in a trap. I read the words over and over, the word, love, slicing into me. Did she think I was that stupid? Or was she that comfortable lying? I thought about texting back. Something sharp. Something final. But I didn't. Instead, I locked the screen and shoved the phone face down in the cup holder. I drove the rest of the way home with one thought circling my mind: she doesn't know I know. When Megan walked through the front door later that night, she was radiant. Vacation glow, the smell of sunscreen and hotel shampoo clinging to her. She dropped her suitcase by the couch, stretched her arms, and smiled at me like nothing was wrong. I stood in the kitchen pretending to pour a drink, heart pounding. She came over, kissed my cheek, and said, "I miss you." I wondered if he was still on her lips. I told her I had been buried in work, that my meeting had run late, that I hadn't been able to get away. Lies came out of me too easily. It scared me how quickly I put on a mask. She unpacked while I watched from the doorway. Little souvenirs, a new dress folded carefully, receipts she didn't think I'd notice. She talked about the beach, about Lauren snoring too loudly, about the cocktails they'd tried. She painted a whole story in vivid colors, and I let her. But in every pause, every slip, I could hear the silence between her words. She wasn't describing a vacation. She was building a cover. I studied her the way I'd studied my father when I was a boy, searching for cracks. The way he'd smile too wide when he came home late. The way his voice turned syrupy when he told Mom she was beautiful, knowing damn well he had been with someone else hours earlier. Now here I was, on the other side of it. My wife moving around our house like nothing had happened, like the airport kiss was just a nightmare I'd dreamed up. And me, standing there, nodding, smiling, pretending. I thought the hardest part would be catching her. But the real torment was this, pretending I hadn't. The days that followed were unbearable in their ordinariness. That's the part nobody tells you about betrayal, how normal everything still looks on the outside. Megan brewed coffee in the mornings, scrolling her phone while the machine hissed. She left lipstick-stained mugs in the sink, humming to herself as she got ready for work. She sent me texts in the afternoon. How's your day? What should we do for dinner? As if nothing had shifted. And I responded. I played my role. Because I wasn't ready yet. It's strange, the way knowledge changes you. Before the airport, I was a husband with vague suspicions, gnawing doubts I could swat away like flies. After the airport, I was something else, a man carrying a truth he couldn't unsee. Every look, every word from her mouth felt poisoned. But I couldn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to see how deep the lie went. So I studied her. I listened to her stories, the little details she added to make the vacation seem real. I noticed how she mentioned Lauren at just the right moments, almost rehearsed, like a stage actor hitting her cues. I wanted to scream every time she said Lauren's name. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie next to her in the dark, listening to her breathing. I used to find comfort in that rhythm, proof that we were together safe. Now it kept me awake, because I imagined another man had fallen asleep to that same sound just nights ago. I replayed the airport scene over and over. His hand brushing hers. Her lips on his. How natural it looked. How public. It told me this wasn't some fling tucked away in secrecy. This was something bold, something she felt secure enough to flaunt, even if she thought I'd never see it. At work, I couldn't focus. My sales calls stumbled. My colleagues noticed I was quieter, but I brushed it off as fatigue. What could I say? Sorry, can't pitch today, just saw my wife kiss her lover in Terminal B. The worst part was the waiting. Waiting to decide whether to confront her, to leave her, or to let it rot me from the inside. Each day I delayed, the weight grew heavier. I'd catch myself staring at her across the dinner table, wondering who she really was. Was she always this good at lying? Had I been living with a stranger all along? Sometimes she'd smile at me, that same smile that once made me feel chosen, safe. Now it just made me sick. Because behind that smile, I saw the kiss again. And I knew. By the second week after her return, Megan's stories began to blur. At first, she had been flawless, every detail lined up, every mention of Lauren neatly inserted, like she had practiced them in a mirror. But the more she talked, the more the cracks showed. One night over dinner, she mentioned a seafood place they had gone to. I asked what Lauren had ordered. Megan hesitated, just for a beat, then laughed it off. Oh, you know Lauren, she doesn't eat seafood. She probably had pasta or something. I didn't correct her. But I remembered her Instagram photo, a cocktail glass beside a platter of oysters, captioned Lauren finally tried these. Another night I noticed her suitcase still tucked in the closet. She had unpacked the clothes but left a crumpled boarding pass in the side pocket. I pulled it out when she was in the shower. The destination code didn't match the beach town she told me. My hands shook as I slid it back in, careful to fold it exactly the way I found it. The evidence was piling up, but I wasn't gathering it for court. I wasn't even sure why I was collecting it. Maybe I needed proof for myself, so I couldn't be gaslit into believing I had imagined everything. Maybe I wanted to see how far she'd go, how long she could keep lying while I stood right in front of her knowing the truth. But holding it in was starting to eat at me. At night, I'd roll away from her in bed, pretending to be half asleep. She'd reach for me sometimes, hand brushing my shoulder, testing the distance. I'd stay still. I didn't trust myself to move without giving it away. My mother's voice came back to me then. Not the voice she used in real life, but the one I remembered from childhood, tired, broken, whispering through tears after catching my dad cheating again. Don't let this be your life too, Daniel. Don't let anyone make you feel small. But here I was, smaller every day. I caught myself rehearsing conversations in my head. Different versions of confrontation. In one, I slammed the boarding pass on the counter. In another, I described the kiss at the airport in precise detail, watching her face for a flicker of recognition. Sometimes in those rehearsals I shouted. Sometimes I stayed icy calm. But always, in every version, the look on her face was the same, caught. And yet, when morning came, I swallowed it down again. I went to work, answered her texts, sat across from her at dinner pretending the floorboards of our marriage weren't already rotting beneath us. The mask was cracking. I could feel it. And when it finally broke, there'd be no going back. It happened on a Thursday night. Nothing dramatic, no thunderstorm outside, no cinematic backdrop. Just the two of us in the kitchen, plates stacked in the sink, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Megan was scrolling her phone, half smiling at whatever was on the screen. I watched her from the table, my chest heavy, the boarding pass burning a hole in my pocket like a secret begging to be set free. I'd rehearsed this moment so many times. 100 different openings. But when it finally came, the words just slipped out of me, quiet and sharp. I went to the airport. She looked up, confused at first. Then still. Absolutely still. I told you I had a meeting that night. I went on, my voice steady. But I didn't. I went to surprise you. Thought it would be romantic. Flowers and all that. Her hand tightened around her phone. Her face was blank, but I saw the flicker in her eyes, recognition, panic, calculation all at once. I saw you, I said. With him. Silence. The kind that swallows a room whole. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally said, You're mistaken. Flat. Mechanical. I laughed, bitter short. Mistaken? You kissed him, Megan. In front of everyone. You didn't even try to hide it. Her mask cracked then, just a little. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't cry, didn't plead. Instead, she tilted her head, almost defiant. So what now? Not I'm sorry. Not let me explain. Just that, so what now? I felt something inside me snap. Not rage, not grief. Something colder. Like a gate finally falling after being held up too long. What now? I repeated. Now I stop pretending I don't know who you are. I left the kitchen. Went to the bedroom. Closed the door. She didn't follow. Lying in the dark, I realized the confrontation hadn't brought me relief. There was no victory in catching her, no satisfaction in tearing off the mask. Just emptiness. Because the truth wasn't the hardest part. Living with it was.